His medical techniques are second to none. Even heads of state came to him for treatment, but he never took a penny. The condition for him to heal others is that he must marry his daughter. At first, the Bai family promised all the time, but when he didn't eat or drink, and it took a whole year to cure the girl, the family refused to admit it. Only then did he know their evil faces. It's true that you cross the bridge and get out of the game. He almost lost his life to save their daughter. Before getting married, they made a promise, but now they've broken the kiss. He stood there without moving, his expression dark and scary. I don't know if it was due to anger or because my body was too weak from the Korean poison. I still didn't respond for a long time. Bai Nuok-ki was a little embarrassed, feeling shy, bowed her head, her face turned red. Bai Hu-fook standing next to him was even more confused. This feeling is truly breaking my word, that Hua himself. It's awkward, only Truong Man doesn't care. Regardless of whether he agreed or not, Bai Hu-fook looked at you and replied that you can rest assured. We will not disadvantage you, and will give you 100,000 yuan for the treatment fee. Well, that way everyone is fair. The face is pale, staring, eyes looking straight. The whole family loved each other for a long time. Bai Nuok-ki did not say a word and immediately became silent. Truong Man looked at his friend's eyes as he took a step forward, blocking the two people's vision. Don't say we are not righteous. You are too lazy to fish in muddy water, and let us bite your torn clothes. There is no need to repay the disease with your own body. If you play this game, why can't we trick you more? Give you another 50,000, 15,000, not a little. You should think carefully. How long will it take you to treat the disease to earn 15,000? Truong Man talked nonstop, but you don't listen to a single sentence. Finally, being asked to bother you, you finally waved your hand and stopped talking. I don't need your money. After hearing this sentence, Chu Man stood there, hands on his waist. Are you still planning to follow? Don't think that knowing a little about medicine is terrible, you country bastard. Do you understand the law? How can you force your daughter to marry you? This is not allowed by law. I told you I'd give you 150,000. If you like it, take it. If not, don't. If you don't take it, you won't get any money. Nuok-ki is in a difficult situation. Miss Nuok-ki stood to the side, really awkward. One side of Nuok-ki is difficult to be happy. She held Bai Hu-fook's hand, signaling her not to rush. Signal to her that she needs to calm down when talking. But Truong Man didn't care. He crossed his arms in front of his chest and snorted coldly. I'm not wrong. Some people don't dare say these words. Let me say, I took a deep breath and finally said this. Mr. Bai still has two young ladies, big and small. I misunderstood. As buyers, how can I force the sale? It's my own will. The frog sitting at the bottom of the well wants to eat swan meat. You know that's good. Truong Man snorted, almost looking up at the sky. Miss, it's okay. I'll take my leave. After removing the needle, you held your chest and turned away, gritting your teeth, your face tired. You turn around and walk away. Bai Nuok-ki looked at your back. Even though she can't accept your ways during treatment, she still takes advantage of her. But the reality is that the treatment is effective. This is what she owes you. Nuok-ki shouted. If you think 150,000 is a little, we can discuss further. Give you double. How about 300,000? As soon as he finished saying this, Truong Man's eyes widened, his face full of disbelief. What? Nuok-ki, you're crazy. He only inserted a few needles, but he took advantage of you and gave you 300,000? Mom, they really cured you, but other doctors couldn't help, right? Bai Nuok-ki sighed and said. Truong Man was stunned. Finally, he coldly snorted and had to withdraw this bastard. You don't come back. It's just a gentle statement. There's no need. I'll find a way to earn the money myself. I haven't cured your illness yet, just a temporary restraint. Please take your leave. After speaking, you made the whole family's eyes widen and their mouths open. While your face turned horrible, you left immediately. Their entire family stood frozen in place, bewildered. Is this a joke? Clearly, Bai Nuok-ki is no longer suffering and can walk again. Now you say it's only temporarily suppressing the cold poison. So isn't that saying the poison will recur later? Bai Hu-fook is the most impatient person. He quickly cried out, wanting to chase after Truong Man, worried. What are you doing? Didn't you hear what he said? This disease is only temporarily suppressed. It may flare up later. If you don't cut out the root of the disease, will you see Nuok-ki fall again? Hu Fook had a headache. They had just crossed the bridge and finished squeezing out the shells when they suddenly discovered that they were killing chickens to get eggs. Would you say it's very embarrassing? Truong Man rolled his eyes, stepped forward, and poked Hu Fook's forehead. Said, "You're crazy, you still don't believe it. How do you know what he's telling the truth, or not?" Hu Fook's entire family looked confused. "What do you mean?" Q Omen curiously asked a question. Q asked a question. "Think about it. Use your brain to think." Truong Man looked at the whole family, opened his mouth, and continued. "This guy has been blackmailing us from the beginning. He insisted on marrying Nuok Ki. That's killing two birds with one stone. But we weren't stupid. We tricked him. He was very angry. So we deliberately set a trap so that we would have to come back and beg him again. Isn't this too normal?" Baitu DM also expressed his agreement. She nodded, turned her head to look at Nuok Ki, and asked, "Sister, tell the truth. Did that boy take any advantage of me before treating me?" Nuok Ki was stunned. She didn't know why her sister mentioned someone like that. Is it related? No. Nuok Ki lowered her head. Her face turned red. That means it was there. Since childhood, I have known that you are so despicable that you can do anything. It's very possible that he wants to buy it from us. Wants you to marry him. She couldn't speak, and after speaking, Nuok Ki herself was a bit confused. They didn't know what you were doing, and you didn't expect such a scene to happen. So does that mean we really aren't looking anymore? Hu Fook asked. Truong Man glared. The car is stuck. You want your daughter to go into the cave? Then go find her. Hu Fook could only smile wryly, show his composure, and greet his friend. We must look at Nuok Ki's condition. There cannot be any mistakes. Oh, Mr. Truong, I'm sorry. I'm a narrow-minded person. I have never seen this type of disease. At that moment, Truong Wan outside the door dragged Tran Bien Phuoc here. Truong Wan smiled widely and said, "Dr. Tran is joking. If even you can't do it, then who else in the world can cure this smell? It's so unpleasant. I can't stand the smell." Tran Bien Phuoc nodded. He also has no choice. I've never really seen this type of disease, but I couldn't stand Truong Wan's nagging, so I just passed by. Anyway, the beautiful Nuok Ki was sentenced to death. Just entering the hospital room, Tran Bien Phuoc folded his hands behind his back. "Where are you?" He glanced at Nuok Ki and almost lost his eyes. "You're miraculously getting better." Tran Bien Phuoc couldn't believe his eyes. He quickly ran over and turned around Nuok Ki. What a miracle. Baby girl's face is now rosy. Looks like a normal person. Nuok nodded. Batu DM was still smiling next to him. "Oh, HXD guy?" Batu DM next to him smiled. Not knowing was good. "My sister can still stand up." Tran Bien Phuoc couldn't believe his eyes until Nuok Ki stood up in front of him. The old man looked at it and praised it wonderfully. "Girl, can I check your pulse? Yourself this time, guaranteed immediately." People were surprised again. "Dr. Tran, how is my daughter? Has she recovered yet?" Truong Man's whole family asked worriedly. With a completely normal face, as soon as Tran Bien Phuoc finished speaking, the whole family breathed a sigh of relief. Truong Man looked at Hu Fook and said comfortably, "Why do you say that? That guy is a fraud, right?" Hu Fook could only smile awkwardly. Tran Bien Phuoc was very curious about his son. "Have you ever looked for someone else to preview an imposter?" Truong Man told all the causes and consequences of the incident. Tran Bien Phuoc frowned and answered a truly absurd sentence. "It's all in the X Mountain. How could he take advantage of the opportunity to force the girl to marry him? This person is truly corrupt in the world of traditional medicine." Truong Wan also chimed in. "That's right. What Aunt said was right. People like this should be taught a lesson. No need for more dishes. Now that my sister has recovered, our whole family should celebrate a little. How about going out for a delicious meal tonight?" Batu DM suddenly proposed, immediately receiving everyone's agreement. Truong Wan warmly invited. "Let's go to a party on the beach. There is a 5-star, high-end restaurant there. He owns it. Invite this family and have dinner with Tran Bien Phuoc." Nuok Ki could not refuse this enthusiasm. He could only agree. "This time you are doing acupuncture, giving yourself acupuncture. Have prepared a bottle of Chinese medicine. Your body has toxins to eliminate. Needs some food. Pour out a bowl of medicine. That bitter taste is unpleasant, but you just need to smell it and just endure a little. But you understand clearly, looking at your gut, You are confident and strong. Do you say you are stupid? Keep dreaming of a frog sitting at the bottom of a well wanting to eat swan meat. Get bad luck. Society today is very strange for girls. Since childhood, mother taught her to touch her. She will put you in her heart. As a result, Lai Tin married True Duong Duong and gave you a green hat. When you were young, mother told you to always be a responsible man, with a big heart and a thin face. As a result, Ba Nuoc Ki's family sees you as a monkey to tease. Thinking of this, you smile sadly. Finally raising his head, he felt a bitterness that could not be put into words. Who would have thought that a Bok Mek would play so energetically? Ba Nuoc Ki sat in front of the window, preparing to go to the party. Suddenly I saw him sitting there, taking medicine. Her beautiful eyes rolled around. Is he the seller Dong? Ba Nuoc Ki pointed out the window and curiously asked the person sitting next to her, Ba Tu Diem's younger sister. So that family's car is parked there, they can freely enjoy your ugly appearance. Ba Tu Diem heard what she said, looked over. I really don't know about this. Before, I always followed the address to his house. To think that this kid would be so miserable. Run to the sidewalk to sell dong. Truong Man sat in the passenger seat, pouting, his face full of contempt. It's a good thing that the old man even went looking for a witch doctor. Are you playing with my daughter's life? Ba Hu Fook pulled his head and sighed. At that time, wasn't there no other way? Everyone thought in the way that there was still no way to deal with it. Luckily, the daughter was cured. If something bad happened, mother couldn't help but risk her life for me. Truong Man crossed his arms over his chest and sat in the car, his face angry. At this moment, she looked outside and couldn't help but scoff. Look, this kid even pretended to be a miracle doctor. It turned out that he himself was sick and had to take medicine. Who knows, Nuoc Ki's illness was just cured by chance. The family turned around to look. That's right, why is even the doctor sick? Not to mention that his family is so poor. Just looking at his weak condition and wanting to marry Miss Ba Nuoc Ki, it's truly a daydream. Okay, it doesn't matter whether it was really cured or just a coincidence. But they cured our Nuoc Ki, really. It's better to say a little less. Ba Hu Fook at least had some limits. Say a word of advice to Truong Man. Ba Tu Diem looked at her sister, Ba Nuoc Ki. At this moment, she kept looking out the window, missing her beautiful eyebrows. Without opening his mouth to ask, Tu Diem really couldn't bear it and asked, Huh? Ba Nuoc Ki sighed and looked out the window. I was just thinking why not take 3 million? It's not simple. People are sitting at the bottom of the well wanting to eat swan's meat. Okay, losing 300,000, losing 730 yuan. Is it really only 300,000? If I marry a young lady of the Ba family like you, it would be a double act. Words of Ba Tu Diem. Her mother, Truong Man, very much agreed, even deliberately joking. This kid is so smart, we're not stupid either. 300,000, if you want, take it. If you want to marry my daughter, don't even dream. This whole family sat in the car in front, chatting. Then, Truong Wan appeared driving his Maserati, with Tran Bien Tuk following closely. Suddenly, he looked out the window, dumbfounded. He's selling dong here again? Hearing that, Tran Bien Tuk was immediately surprised, looked over at him, turned his head, and looked amazed. It was he who treated Ba Nuoc Ki. Yes, what a talent. Surprised that this guy is a garden healer, still selling dong here. Truong Man with a disdainful expression. Tran Bien Tuk felt restless. Garden healer? He was defeated by a garden medicine man. Their convoy quickly left this place, but Tran Bien Tuk's heart was still engraved, leaving a deep impression. Since attending elementary school in China, he has decades of experience as a doctor. Looking at the name his parents gave Tran Bien Tuk, it can be seen that his family has great hopes for him. True ocean consciousness also did not disappoint. In Thuong Du, he is very famous and can be said to be a powerful expert in traditional medicine. Previously, he had treated Ba Nuoc Ki, but he could not be cured and was very ashamed. Suddenly there appeared a healer who was so good that he even wanted to exchange it for someone's daughter. He also thought that either 80-year-old B was indecent, or that he was a stubborn scion of a prestigious family. Some traditional medicine families actually kept many lost medicine books. If by chance the disease is cured, there is nothing to blame. That means in Tran Bien Tuk's heart, this person's status is not simple. Otherwise, don't dare say too much and force someone to become your wife. But now, When he saw it with his own eyes, Tran Bien Tuc really felt uncomfortable. How did a young garden healer finally cure this disease? Once he had this thought, Tran Bien Tuc truly couldn't understand it. A truly unbearable meal. He used the excuse of going home to do something, quickly left the table, went out, and called a car to go straight to the place he had just passed by. By this time the sun had set. You finish a day of selling, clean up, and prepare to go home. Suddenly, a figure appeared in front of the counter, looking straight at you, staring at you. You raise your head to look, you raise your eyebrows. Are you Tran Bien Tuc? Looking at you with a complicated expression. It was you who cured my lady. It's true you. But Tran Bien Tuc seemed not to understand. Clasping his hands in front of his chest, he said one sentence. Sorry, I'm taking the liberty. May I take the liberty of asking, where did you learn from? It's my father. You say your father's name, then bow your head and continue cleaning the counter. The old man repeated in his head, searching for memories, but he kept thinking and couldn't find them. He had never heard of this name in the Oriental medicine world. Can we talk for a bit? Tran Bien Tuc cares about you very much. You laugh when you hear that. But I'm looking to take it home for dinner. No flavor, nothing special. It's okay. It's okay, said Old Man Dong, one face. Please show some respect. Let's have dinner. You are strong. You finally nodded in agreement. So too. People nearby sat down at a small restaurant, ordered a few dishes, a pot of tea, and ate and talked comfortably. During this conversation, Tran Bien Thuoc occasionally interjected some stories about traditional medicine. As a result, the more he talked, the more surprised he became, stopping in amazement. One foot was about to step in, but some of the options his opponents mentioned he had never heard of. Speaking of the interesting part, the old man couldn't help but applaud the table and applauded nonstop. That's amazing. How insightful. Great. It turns out we can even use this treatment. Tran Bien Thuoc recalls the story of Bai Nuoc Ki. You have such ability. Why do you have to worry about not having a wife? Why do you have to threaten the Bai family? Tran Bien Thuoc almost didn't dare to be blunt about this matter. You've already done it. If you have this talent, you're afraid you won't have a wife. You'll still have to change your cover. You'll still need to capture it, and then use 3 stages of intimidation. You just smiled bitterly and didn't answer. Do not. Regarding Tran Bien Thuoc, he was confused, guessing that maybe he liked Bai Nuoc Ki. By the way, do you want to marry that person? Although falling in love is a very normal thing, it must also be voluntary, right? If the other person does not agree and you still force it, then there is a problem with your dignity. So Bien Thuoc is also worthy of being a doctor. He needs to be virtuous. Without moral will, no matter how good he is just a doctor. He really didn't want to see a talented young man go down the wrong path. You let out a bitter laugh. He picked up the teacup and took a sip. Finally, he politely said, however, Mr. Tran doesn't know that it is because I have virtuous intentions that I propose to marry the young lady of the Bach family. Tran Bien Thuoc asked back, even more skeptical. Does Mr. Tran know about Han poison? You don't answer, but instead ask him a question. I've heard this before. I just don't fully understand it. Tran Bien Thuoc smiled shyly. He's only read a few medical books about this, but they're all just cursory, with no detailed descriptions. There's absolutely no cure. So Mr. Tran certainly doesn't know how to cure this cold poison. Tran Bien Thuoc smiled shyly, picked up the teacup again, and sighed gloomily. Can you check my pulse? Even though he didn't understand why you were checking his pulse yourself, he still did it. But as soon as he touched your pulse, his expression immediately changed in surprise. Why are the symptoms similar to those in the Bach family, the condition of the young lady before? He thought you had completely recovered from Nuoc Ki. Tran Bien Thuoc looked at you with a strange look full of confusion. What did you leave behind to treat my young lady's illness? You nodded, performing the treatment for the cold poison, clearly stating the transfer method. After listening, Tran Bien Thuoc blushed extremely shyly. Between men and women, it is true that this method can be used for treatment. It can indeed be used for treatment. After understanding everything, Tran Bien Thuoc felt especially uncomfortable. You have no relationship with my lady. If not my lover, who could do this? One can only feel sadness and lament. The family sent all their money to the family with such a good son-in-law, but it is considered a piece of mud. Having this thought, Tran Bien Thuoc immediately wanted to recruit talented people. Young man, what are your future plans? Just take one step and then count another step. You withdrew your hand, picked up your chopsticks, and started eating. The old man still has some connections, this Linjiang City Chinese Medicine Hospital. The director is also my student. If my young friend has an idea, I can introduce it to you. Thank you, Mr. Tran. Before I lost my freedom, now I can trade freely. I feel quite good. Tran Bien Thuoc looked at you. The more he looked, the more he liked it. Having the ability and knowing how to speak and behave humbly like that. He wants to recruit you even more. His eyes flashed. I have a daughter who studied medicine with me from a young age and studied national studies from a young age. She loves to cure diseases and save people. I think you can get along. The next words, Bien really didn't know what to say. He planned to give it to two people, one. He thought and planned a future for the two of them, accepting you as his niece-in-law. But after going through things with Lai Tin and Lai Van Hai, you were hurt by girls. Temporarily no longer thinking about my whole life. So, I politely refused. Tran Bien Thuoc is very sad. I almost beat my chest and legs. The two of you met so late, it's a pity. Many of you reluctantly parted ways in the end. Look, the time is very late. You clasped your hands and bowed. Immediately say goodbye. Tran Bien Thuoc returned home. When we returned, it was already past 8 p.m. As soon as I walked to the door, a black Mercedes parked there. Outside is a long-legged, elegant girl, her arms folded across her chest, her back leaning against Mercedes, looking at her friend's return. You multiply face. Why is she at my door? If you are a beauty wearing a red dress and gold-trimmed high heels, the two of you stand there looking at each other. She was a little embarrassed. Her face was red. You're home. You replied coldly. What did you come to find me for? Then, by Nuoc, he opened it, and the company took out a heavy black bag from inside. I came to give you money, no calculation. Please accept the money, you are so kind. Honestly, Bai Nuoc Ki is really beautiful. Looking at her, he felt his heart pounding, but he was also very clear. No need, miss, please bring the money back. He directly refused her financial donation, which caused Bai Nuoc Ki to misunderstand. She frowned, trying to advise in a sincere tone. Love cannot be forced. You saved me. I'm very grateful to you. But you should know that gratitude doesn't mean you have to repay me with your own life or marry me. Do you understand? He still stood there silently. Receive it. Consider it as my thanks. Don't make me a guest. Don't leave a knot in my heart, okay? Bai Nuoc Ki gave money again. You took a deep breath, feeling relieved, finally feeling relieved. You said smiling, Miss Bach, you're right. Gratitude is beyond compare. To repay it personally, I'm sorry for my previous rude thoughts towards you, but you really don't have to give it to me. Yuan Bach Nuoc Ki was filled with anger and finally gritted his teeth and said, You're doing this in retaliation. If that's the case, this is what you deserve. Take the money, open a small charity shop, and when you earn money later, you can find a good wife. Angry. Miss, I don't need to keep my pride. Only people who care about you can be angry with them. It's not to take revenge on you, and Bach Nuoc Ki is not a relative. Why would there be? About pride and anger. I just want to tell you, my illness has only been temporarily controlled and has not yet been cured. No lock, I cannot accept this money. After saying this, Bach Nuoc Ki was suddenly stunned. If the disease is only contained, won't it relapse? Didn't Tran Bien Thuoc say it would heal? Her mother and sister Bach Tu Diem, but on the contrary, what if he didn't lie? Like a tiger stalking its prey, Nuoc Ki bowed her head. Bach Nuoc Ki bowed her head and smiled. Say one sentence. If I get sick, will you save me? Sorry, I won't save you. Coldly said a word, then turned around and went home. Looking at his back, Bach Nuoc Ki felt very uncomfortable, but she also knew that she had no right to force him to save her. Anyway, I still owe you a favor. If he really didn't intend to take the money, having said that, Bach Nuoc Ki took out a business card from his pocket. If you encounter cold in Lamjong City, you can find me. I will definitely help you solve it. He stood there looking at her holding the business card in her hand, smirking. The proverb says well, you shouldn't hit someone who laughs, let alone give you fruit. Okay, I thank you in advance. All types of food have the answer. You gently reached out to take the business card. Bach Nuoc Ki's worried heart was soothed. Then say goodbye and leave. Looked at the business card in his hand, laughed at himself, put it in his pocket, and went home for dinner. Elsewhere, Tran Bien Tuc returned home to China, thinking about today's events, still unable to understand. He couldn't understand. You look very young. How is that possible? Right at this moment, a sweet voice rang out. Tran Bien Tuc frowned, his face full of smiles. Nuoc Lu, why aren't you here? Do you memorize medical books? A beautiful, mischievous little girl stood there smiling sweetly. I've memorized all the medical books since I was a child. In a Chinese family, even though she was young, Tran Bien Tuc had a strict upbringing with her. Today, she is admired, famous everywhere, and is considered Tran Bien Tuc's successor. On weekdays, Tran Bien Tuc might still have to check on her, but today Tran Bien Tuc looked at Tran Nuoc Lu. If it was horizontal, it wouldn't be right. If it was in the opposite direction, it wouldn't be happy. Children do not produce water. In the end, he could only shake his head helplessly and lament. How are you, Tran Nuoc Lu? She looked blankly at her grandfather with a puzzled expression. Grandpa, what happened to you today? After Tran Bien Tuc finished speaking, he went in and sat down on the sofa, sighed, and said to Nuoc Lu, Today I met a person, a young man. His medical skills are very impressive. Grandpa's illness was very complicated, but he was cured. Tran Nuoc Lu heard this, and his mouth was small. One must know that her grandfather in her mind was always noble and great, an idol-like presence. But now, even with his grandfather's incurable disease, there is a young man. Whose son is he? Bien Thuoc sighed and shook his head. He's a garden healer, selling on the Salt Street. After Tran Bien Tuc said this sentence, Tran Nuoc Lu was immediately shocked by the news. The family is famous for traditional medicine and is a prominent physician in the capital. How could they lose to a wandering physician? Moreover, listening to his grandfather, he is still very young. At Tran Nuoc Lu's corner, he felt that his three views were a little turned upside down. Tran Bien Tuc lamented. I don't know if there's any price. There's nothing to offer. He just waved his hand and went back to his room to rest. But Tran Nuoc Lu pursed his lips and said to himself, How could Grandpa lose to that kid? He must have played some trick. I heard he sells it on the Salt Street. I should go check it out. Early the next morning, you ran to the Salt Street again. As usual, you came across an opening, setting up a stall, according to old habits. Raise your hand inside, holding a medical book, reading it, and falling asleep without realizing it. Suddenly you are awakened by a clear voice. Tran Nuoc Lu walked directly over and slammed his hand on the table. Are you the winner? Is my grandfather, Tran Bien Tuc? You don't pay attention to her and continue to sleep with the book on your head. Tran Nuoc Lu was a bit unhappy, so he directly grabbed the book from his friend's head. Looking more closely, it turned out to be a manuscript. Let's test our skills. You immediately felt helpless and had no choice but to open one eye and look at her. How do you want to compete? Tran Nuoc Lu's eyes rolled continuously. If you want to compete in medical skills, then let's compete openly and properly. We find a patient, then each person cures themselves, and see who can cure it. What do you think? These are some methods to treat bone degeneration in people with herniated discs. Even with very advanced medical techniques, it is difficult to find patients. As soon as you finished speaking, Tran Nuoc Lu smiled gracefully. The director of the city center hospital is our grandfather's student. He went there to test his skills and was not allowed to choose ordinary patients. That wouldn't show my medical skills. Tran Nuoc Lu did not know where he got the courage to even choose difficult cases to treat. You nodded vaguely. Then the two of you left, taking a taxi straight to the hospital downtown. Tran Nuoc Lu went straight to the principal's room, hearing that the teacher's niece was coming. Principal Truong Mao rushed out. As soon as the two met, they couldn't help but ask questions. Nuoc Lu, why are you here? Sir, Uncle Truong, I'm here for an internship. I have a few patients. As soon as Tran Nuoc Lu finished speaking, Truong Mao was so happy that he constantly flattered his niece to come help treat our patient. This is the blessing of our city center hospital. Having finished speaking, Truong Mao's eyes fell on his friend. He frowned and smiled. Let's see. Nuoc Lu has grown up and has a boyfriend? This sentence shocked you and Tran Nuoc Lu. But after a while, in the end, he simply patted his thigh and lazily explained. Oh, I don't know. Quickly find us a patient with a difficult-to-treat disease. We need to compete. After hearing these words, Truong Mao understood. It turns out that this country bumpkin is not Tran Nuoc Lu's boyfriend, but her rival. The two wanted to go to China with Tran Bien Thuc's niece. In China, you don't have to find beauty yourself. But because the master's granddaughter spoke up, Principal Truong had no choice but to respond. Then follow me. While speaking, he led the way forward. Tran Nuoc Lu called out. She and her friend moved forward together. In the end, after searching again and again, Tran Nuoc Lu felt that the patients were really too normal. Even Truong Mao can fix how to express her. Except for the medical methods of her niece Bien Thuoc, Tran Nuoc Lu had a headache. Maybe today, just when she was confused and didn't know what to do, suddenly a rough sound rang out, attracting everyone's attention. Call your hospital director out here. This is a trash hospital. What is it? You guys tell me that, but you can't. I can check it out because Truong Mao is the hospital director. Of course I will see. After a few people passed there and saw a person wearing a black suit, the man loudly scolded. If there's anything wrong with the old lady, it will definitely make this hospital of yours unbearable. Truong Mao frowned. Causing chaos at the hospital is a very common thing. It is possible to go to a traditional medicine hospital to cause trouble, fearing that you have looked in the wrong place. He looked at the female doctor next to him and asked a direct question. Tu Tran, what's the situation? The female doctor surnamed Tran lost her expression in fear. When she saw the director coming, she quickly explained, these people brought a treatment, but we really can't know what the situation is. Tell them to use professional equipment to check, but unfortunately they refused. Big deal. Truong Mao was very dissatisfied, looked directly at the black suit, and replied, this is a traditional medicine hospital. Don't cause trouble. Otherwise, I will call security. It's better not to say these words. After speaking, the black suit almost burst into tears of laughter. Director Truong, right? You and I are old acquaintances. The man in black finished speaking. Truong Mao was stunned, thinking over and over again that he didn't know who he said he was. But right after that, he immediately widened his eyes, was surprised, lost his expression, and shouted, Tu Xin Bao. The black suit smiled coldly. It was clear, you could see Truong Mao's whole body suddenly bowed his head and stammered. The illness has been prolonged. It's what your mother said. After the man in the black suit finished speaking, Truong Mao was no longer as arrogant as before. He could only smile and reply, my staff is unreasonable. My friend, quickly take me over to see. It seems that Tu Xian Bao is a big figure. Just turning around, there were several bodyguards wearing identical black suits. How great is Tu Xian Bao's momentum? Quickly, Truong Mao followed the man in the black vest inside. Tran Nuoc Lu pulled his friend's hand back. The two of them were about to follow. The two bodyguards turned back to the door, but raised their hands to stop them, coldly shouting, those who are not authorized to enter are not allowed. Miscellaneous. I am Tran Bien Thuoc's nephew. Tran Nuoc Lu pointed at Tu Tich and shouted, who hasn't heard of Tran Bien Thuoc? As a result, a sentence from the bodyguard made you laugh immediately. Tran Nuoc Liu's method is that Tran Nuoc comes out, turns to look at Ban Truong, opens his mouth and calls out, Uncle Truong. Truong Mao, just scared by the black suit, completely forgot about this matter. Turning his head to look at his friend and Tran Nuoc Lu, he remembered. Patting his head, he quickly walked past. This is an acquaintance, also our doctor. His medical profession is very high. Men, please give way. Those bodyguards were half trustful, no matter how you looked at it. You and Tran Nuoc Lu looked like inexperienced people, with strong healing abilities. They all turned their heads to look at the man in the black suit in the room, thinking that he must be the leader. The man in the black suit nodded indifferently. This sentence may be a typo and cannot be translated accurately. Only then did the outside pass, and two people walked in. Looking closely, at a glance, on the hospital bed, lay a person with a pale face and pale lips. She couldn't seem to breathe. She struggled to breathe one early morning. The man in the black suit didn't say a word, lifted his hand, and made a hand gesture. Truong Man was very nervous. His hands were shaking, trying to check the old woman's pulse. He kept crying out, this pulse is very chaotic. Truong Mao finally knew why the doctor at the hospital forced them to get tested. This is a hospital regulation, an unwritten rule that has been mastered. The patient is about to die, they will not accept it. Fear of dying in the hospital, difficult to explain, and also affecting reputation. This old woman is probably not going to survive. Unless it is the king of hell, no one can save her. But when thinking of Tu Xianbao, Chuang Mao lamented unspeakably. If his mother dies here, I'm afraid the second half of his life will be very difficult. How is the situation? Can the old lady finally be cured? The black bodyguard is still urging. Chuang Mao didn't know how to answer. In his mind, was he still thinking about treatment? I don't know if I can make it through today. What's wrong with you? Can you speak clearly? The black shirt bodyguard was angry and could not control himself. He approached and grabbed Chuang Mao's collar, digging fiercely. Chuang Mao immediately sweated and said tremblingly, "Her pulse is very chaotic. Her life is in danger. I guess she might have very severe asthma." Suddenly, a little girl's voice rang out. The black-clothed bodyguard released Chuang Mao. The black-clothed bodyguard turned his head to take a quick look. At this time, Tran Nuoc Lu came forward, sat next to her, and reached out to check her pulse. "So how exactly should we treat it?" The black bodyguard did not care about this. "Don't worry, I just need acupuncture for the symptoms of shortness of breath. In a few days it can be relieved. Then you need to take the time to take her to a Western medicine doctor in the city." Tran Nuoc Lu finished speaking. The man in black breathed a sigh of relief, afraid he wouldn't be able to get there in time. If something really happens to the old lady, I'm afraid it will be difficult for me to deal with it myself. The black-clothed guard glanced at Chuang Mao and said one sentence. "This old dean is not even as good as a little girl." Chuang Mao was helpless. "Who said the director must be good at medicine? You haven't examined anyone for many years, little girl. Try a needle. Hurry up. Look at the old lady in such pain." The black-shirt bodyguard couldn't help but scream. Tran Nuoc Lu nodded, took out the silver needle, and prepared to start working. But you suddenly stopped from behind. "Wait, she doesn't have asthma." The circle lets everyone, in general, turn their heads to look at you. "You said it's not asthma. So what is the situation?" Tran Nuoc Lu asked. "Very dangerous. She has an enlarged heart muscle. Now it has reached the point of heart failure." You finished speaking. Tran Nuoc Lu was angry, unable to control. You haven't even checked your pulse, yet you dare confirm heart failure. This is medical irresponsibility." Trian focuses on Pro's inquiries. Thiad observed her face. "In addition, this person is a bit fat, so he should eat moderately. The current symptoms are the same as I have seen before in someone. Almost bit by bit, I'm very sure. She had heart failure caused by myocardial hypertrophy." At important moments, the black-clothed security guard becomes awkward. Looking at it, the male side says the male side is reasonable. The female side says the female side is reasonable. Ultimately, is it heart failure or asthma? The two of you, please give me a firm word. Tran Nuoc Lu put her hands on her small waist, staring at you. Just about to blurt it out, "Of course my words are correct. I am Tran Bien Thuoc's niece." Unexpectedly, before the words could be uttered, Chuang Mao stood next to him, took a look, held Tran Nuoc Lu, smiled and said, "This guy is a noble man. How can these words be counted by a child?" The black bodyguards also don't know what they are hiding in there, or whether they sell any drugs. Feeling that this statement made sense, he nodded at his friend and said, "Then let's do it quickly." You let out a sigh. Actually, big news is not good. Heart bypass surgery is possible, but at her age the risks are too great. I can only help her prolong her life. After you finished speaking, the man in the suit frowned but still nodded. "Thanks to you." Without saying "take it now," the silver needle came out and started to get busy. Tran Nuoc Lu wanted to speak several times, but was held back by Chuang Mao. She immediately became impatient, but stopped for a while. "Although it was a big shock, life was long and difficult, but right now my life is holding on." "No, Uncle Chuang, you're pulling me back." "Uncle Chuang." Putting his hand up, Chuang Mao frowned, his heart pounded, and said in a low voice, "Nuoc Lu, listen to me. Don't move around, don't talk nonsense. You may not know who Xianbao is. He is the underground king of Lamjong City. Whatever happens, I will not be able to explain. Neither you nor I can fulfill our responsibilities. Please be careful." Stopping speaking, Tran Nuoc Lu was startled. Xianbao doesn't mean to say. At this moment, she suddenly understood everything. Chuang Mao did not want to cause trouble, nor did he want to get Tran Nuoc Lu involved in trouble. He's trying to avoid everything. He wants you to be the scapegoat. Tran Nuoc Lu felt uncomfortable in his heart. looked at Truong Mao strangely, and gave up because of this without paying attention. Tran Nuoc Lu also understands very well that for big figures like this, for people with such power, treating them is the most difficult thing. In the past, Thai medicine was a highly dangerous profession. If you didn't follow orders, you would be ordered. If the crown princess has difficulty giving birth, you will all be executed. Everyone who had a difficult childbirth was blamed. Tran Nuoc Lu was also scared. No matter how good her grandfather was, he couldn't stand against Xian Bao. Looking at you, her heart feels uncomfortable. Your life is short. Your movements are very fast, like you are performing magic. The two hands kept flashing back and forth. Silver is a strong type. Silver is a moment. Truong Mao and Tran Nuoc Lu were both stunned for once. Is it magic? Doubtful if the house uses magic? How can you do something wrong? Illness, especially a dying person, only needs one little mistake. Didn't the last piece of poplar crush the camel to death? They watched with their hearts pounding. The way you do it is like dying. If you're not careful, it's all over. Finally, all the silver needles were inserted. You let out a heavy sigh, wiping the sweat from your forehead. The people around seemed to be drawn to you and sighed. The man in the black vest looked at you, opened his mouth and asked, "Dr. Lam, is this okay, old lady?" The elderly woman was still lying on the bed, her face pale, her lips purple. It seems nothing has changed. Then wiped his hands. "Okay, you can call an ambulance to transfer to the city hospital." The man in the vest winked and signaled to his subordinates. "He can't leave. He has to stay here to monitor you. If something happens later, we can't let this person escape." The person in charge nodded and immediately went down to deal with it. Not long after, police sirens rang out outside. A person arrived at the scene and they prepared to put the old lady on a stretcher and move her away immediately. Everyone turned their heads, their eyes focused on the old lady. I just saw the old lady's face starting to become rosy again, her lips gradually returning to color. The man in the black vest breathed a sigh of relief. He clasped his hands and bowed his head to Dr. Lam. "I thank you in advance on your behalf. I will definitely stop by your house another day to thank you personally." You nodded, taking it as a courtesy. He hurriedly called someone, then quickly escorted the old lady to the hospital. In the hospital room at this time, only Truong Mao and Tran Nuoc Lu remained. The two of them stood there looking embarrassed, rubbing their hands, looking at you. They think you are a substitute. Everyone thinks you have some tricks up your sleeve. Now all the credit belongs to someone else. Okay, I didn't expect this kid to have real talent. I'm convinced. You're really good. Tran Nuoc Lu left. He patted your shoulder hard. His smile was somewhat awkward, very unnatural. You just cleaned up the honeysuckle, looked at her, laughed coldly, and reminded her. Someone once challenged me to come here to a trial. They said that if they lose this time, they won't get married again. Otherwise, no one will marry them in their whole life. Being suddenly slapped in the face, Tran Nuoc Lu stiffened there, his face red with embarrassment, bowing his head and saying a dissatisfied sentence. "Who knows? It must be my brother. As for saying I'm right, I have to wait for the fitting to get the results. The four of us are really miserable. The bear man can't get up." On the other side of the fitting room, a particularly rude voice rang out. "Mom, I saw a young man with his head standing up, a large man wearing a suit, rushing in." The people wearing black vests around nodded and repeatedly shouted, "Bao! You come from Xian Bao. You are golden treasure." When he was very young, his father passed away, and his mother raised him by his side. When he was young, he dared to fight, and, step by step, achieved today's achievements. After becoming famous, I felt like I owed my mother a lot. He is a famous filial son in Lamjong City. Today there was a contract worth several tens of millions that needed to be discussed, but when he heard that his mother was in danger of dying and had to go to the hospital, Xian Bao left his partner behind and rushed over. Lost money can be earned back, but if you lose your mother, you will regret it for the rest of your life. Luckily, when he got there, the old lady was sitting there smiling, still peeling oranges, still enjoying it, looking at him in such a hurry to do something. "Mom is still healthy." The old lady was still giggling. "That's good then." After saying these words, he stood up, walked straight in front of the person in the black suit from before, and slapped him hard. That person was beaten. The corner of his mouth was bleeding. He still had to stand there at attention. "Useless things. How are you taking care of the old lady? If my mother has any problems, you won't be able to survive. I'm sorry, tell the man in black to speak politely. It's actually not because he handled it properly. You lost your life a long time ago, said one sentence. Tu Xianbao was surprised, then asked a question. What is the final question? Abil bowed his head respectfully and told the whole story, repeating it once again. When I heard that, if it hadn't been for Fluang then why to handle it properly and save time to give emergency treatment to the old lady, I'm afraid that when I arrived at the city hospital from Xianbao, I wouldn't have been able to hold back my sigh of relief. Pay attention to the explanation of the condition, present it clearly, and point out that the owner's too happy life has led to myocardial hypertrophy and requires coronary artery bypass surgery, but the success rate is only 50%. Abil said that Fluang Then Wai had predicted this situation and also suggested that he go find Fluang Then Wai to see if further treatment could be performed. Tu Xianbao heard it and found it very reasonable. Abiao prepared a generous gift and prepared to meet Fluang Then Wai, and here I just returned to the shop. Dong was preparing to pack up to go home, but unexpectedly a Bach motorcycle stopped right in front of the door and honked loudly at me. I turned my head and glanced at the people in the car, didn't care, packed my things, and turned to leave. The person in the car nervously opened the car door, and a middle-aged man ran out. Fluang Then Wai, Nuoc Ki's cold poisoning flared up again today. She said she started feeling very cold again. Can you help me save my daughter? I turned around and left and said, sorry, I can't help. Before I saved Nuoc Ki, without any gratitude, they all turned away, intentionally using marriage to frame me. I immediately turned around. I don't know who would have thought that Bach Nuoc Ki's illness would develop so quickly. The Bach family ran to find many people to consider, and even invited Tran Bien Thuoc. As a result, Tran Bien Thuoc answered very frankly. He cannot do anything about this disease. Only Fluang Nguyen can do it. There is no other way. Mrs. Hu Fook could only be bold again for her daughter's sake. The result is anyone's guess. I refused on the spot. Mrs. Hu Fook showed a pained look on her face as she watched me go away. He hurriedly chased after him. Teacher Tuk Fluang, I'm sorry that the three families offended me before. Please be generous and save my daughter, Nuoc Ki. I will give you as much money as you need. Haha, smiled coldly, just looked at by Hu Fook and said frankly, I won't look at the words of your Bai family, even a punctuation point apologizing for the life of the precious young lady, but my life is not a grass. Bai Hu Fook was sad. Right now, people were always sitting in the car waiting for the results. Truong Man and Bai Tu Diem couldn't bear it and ran out of the car one after another. Truong Man angrily shouted at Fluang Nguyen, don't you want to raise the price? How much money do you want? Tell me the price. Last time you didn't accept 300,000. Are you satisfied now? 3 million. Final price. One-time cure for my daughter. Bai Tu Diem also chimed in and spoke pitifully, dragging. How can you be like this? How do you want to change? Do you have to force my sister to marry you? This whole family kept chattering on the street. Many people were looking at them. I turned cold, didn't pay attention, turned around, and wanted to leave. Mother and son panicked. Each grabbed my sleeve, screaming, don't go. If you haven't said it clearly, you can't go. I was actually a little angry. Is it not done? I shouted. Truong Man saw that I dared to scold her and collapsed. Why are you so shameless? If someone else's daughter doesn't marry you, you won't treat her. Everyone, please come here and judge. Let's talk about whether there are doctors who do things like this. This guy is really unethical. She screamed loudly. So, it was unavoidable that many people flocked to the place. Everyone wondered what happened in the end. Truong Man added salt to tell the story. This kid really has no conscience. He treated the girl's illness, but during the healing process, he took advantage of it. After finishing the job, he also asked her to marry him, otherwise he wouldn't treat her. After hearing the story, the angry people, one by one, cursed him, saying that he was a fake doctor. What kind of person is this? In broad daylight, there is this kind of shameless person? Everyone agreed to defend the mother and child. Each person was angry and angry. This is a good sentence. I am curing diseases and saving people, and you are the ones who begged me to treat her. Why are you turning away like that? Okay, if you say I am curing diseases and saving people, then you should cure the disease to the end. Now, halfway through curing the disease, you won't cure it anymore. What is this for you? Truong Man took the opportunity to force me. I immediately got angry. Look at this porridge market family. Will I take any money from your family if I treat the disease? They've all come. Your daughter's symptoms haven't improved? She only had 3 days to live. I gave her first aid to bring her back to life. Now I'm still being forced by your family, right? Goodbye, hateful eyes. Goodbye, moonlight. Everyone gathered at the scene, one by one with the person they needed, along with the person they had actually saved. Damn it. This situation was so embarrassing. Truong Man immediately said, I am the wife of the general director of Thin the Group. My family will be left to you, but you won't change my country clothes. After saying this sentence, the surrounding viewers suddenly realized, people are this rich, do they still need to deceive people? Surely this kid is wrong. This is just a healer playing with fire, tricking the workers. Drop a sentence. No matter what you guys say, I'm not involved, so don't try to drag me out. Truong Man crossed his arms across his chest, looking arrogant. If it weren't for looking at you a little, I wouldn't have humbled myself to beg you. Poor thing, you think you're so good. Your tail is up in the air. Bai Hu Fook stood behind and said nothing. Bai Tu Diem was also a bit uncomfortable, feeling that her mother was a bit humiliated. Truong Man pointed at my nose and scolded. Now I give you 2 choices, either cure my daughter or take you to the police station. Choose yourself. Close your eyes, stare intently. Look at Truong Man without blinking. Truong Man did not give in and replied, What are you looking at, you poor thing? Do you think you can oppose the Bai family? With your poor appearance, going to court, you can't even afford to hire a lawyer. It's better to be obedient and go get medical treatment. The people around are also instigating. If an old person is sick, it's really sick. People are very merciful and give you a chance to be human. Real people have many tricks, that's all. As soon as they see that Bai's family is rich, everyone fawns over them. Looking at others, they all have plenty of water to fish for. My torn shirt felt a bit awkward, but at that moment, a car horn suddenly sounded in front of me. One person stuck his head out and shouted, Go away. Don't get in the way. Everyone was stunned. They all turned their heads. Who is so arrogant? That look scared them to death. The big car sped past the majestic Mercedes convoy, screeching to see the license plates. It turned out to be the convoy of the local metal treasure from Xianbao, so famous in Lamjong City that these people were afraid to dare to act rashly, so they all gave way. Everyone wondered. You said D was everywhere. Why did he appear here now? This made them even more surprised that this luxurious convoy stopped directly in front of my stall. With a bang, the car doors opened simultaneously. A group of people wearing black suits got out of the car and stood solemnly there. AB Bill ran over and quickly opened one of the Mercedes doors. Seeing a person wearing a suit, hair slicked back, a man holding a cigar got out of Xianbao from the car, ignoring everyone, walking straight in front of me. Open your mouth and say one sentence immediately. Are you Fuang Wen? After speaking, the people around who were watching the excitement became excited. This poor guy is so interesting. Offending a real estate tycoon, Mrs. Hu Fook. Now he also offended the underground king from Xianbao. I'm afraid he will die miserably. Well, Mrs. Hu Fook is a decent businessman. She can't do anything to me. But if she displeases Xianbao, I'm afraid that if it's light, she'll have to use a wheelchair. If it's heavy, she'll end up in the river as fish bait. I looked at Xianbao and nodded a bit. While everyone was waiting to see a good play, a miracle happened. Tu Xianbao laughed, stepped forward and hugged me tightly. Then he said, Big brother, I've been looking for you forever. When I got to your house, your grandfather said you were still setting up your wares in the market. I had to ask for directions before getting here. Everyone at the scene was stunned and scared. Tu Xianbao did not come to cause trouble for me, but on the contrary, he called me brother. This person is also really interesting. Brothers, if I don't have work today, I won't go to Tambao Palace. I've prepared a party at Van Hoalao. No matter what, you have to give me some face. Let's eat and talk. How about it? Tu Xianbao was very polite to me. After all, he had a favor to ask. I nodded slightly. I'm a little unable to escape here. After saying this, Tu Xianbao was surprised to discover a group of people harassing me. Immediately, he frowned, his eyes flashing coldly. Why would someone cause trouble for you guys? As soon as Tu Xianbao finished speaking, he scared everyone around him. They all backed away, afraid of being implicated. As soon as they left, the 3 of them, Truong Man and Bai Hu Fook, stood out even more, with slightly different positions. Tu Xianbao laughed coldly and looked at the three of them. I kept thinking, who is this? Isn't it Chairman Bach of Thin the Group? Ba Hu Fook smiled wryly and even sweated when bored. Legitimate businessmen like them are most afraid of having to deal with people like this. What are my brothers, Fuang Gwen? What incident offended you? Truong Man was surprised and quickly opened his mouth to speak. Ba Hu Fook quickly pulled her back and smiled wryly. Misunderstanding, just a misunderstanding. Truong Man tried to endure. His face looked like he had to die, extremely unsightly. As a result, Tu Xianbao nodded and said coldly, "It's best that way." I Xianbao clearly said here that Brother Fuang Gwen saved my mother. Anyone who causes trouble for him is causing trouble for me. After Tu Xianbao finished speaking, everyone at the scene took a cold breath. Everyone looked at me, stared intently. Their eyes were completely wrong. This poor guy is so lucky to be able to have a relationship with Tu Xianbao. After Tu Xianbao said this, it immediately turned into a bright smile. Brother Fuang Gwen, please come. I glanced at the Bai family's unsightly faces. What? Don't say anything. Turn around and sit in the Mercedes. Amidst all the gossip around, he immediately left without looking back. Ba Hu Fook's family felt extremely embarrassed. Everyone around was just joking, talking and laughing. Ba Hu Fook just felt embarrassed, quickly pulled his wife and daughter into the car, and ran away in panic. Sitting in the car, Truong Man was still complaining. Old Bai, what are you doing? Isn't it just a word, Xianbao? Why are you so afraid of him? Bai Chu Diem also didn't understand. Just now we were also outmatched. Ba Hu Fook's face turned pale as he drove and complained. What do you guys know? Honest businessmen don't know how to be gentle to make a profit. Can you cause trouble? Tomorrow, go to the sales office of Thin the Group, regardless of person or business. The troublemaker, the day after tomorrow, comes to your land and destroys machines. Do you still want to do the deal? Truong Man stood still and muttered to himself. So you can still come? Ba Hu Fook's face was sullen, appearing helpless. On the other side, in the Nam Sa Hotel, there was a rich wine feast on the table. I looked at the table full of food. The honor party for you from this guy is too expensive. Tu Xianbao laughed. You are my honored guest. How can you call it luxury? Mr. Fuang Gwen, I am older than you. Just call me your boss. Why is that so good? You must have come because of the old lady, because of her illness, right? I know what he means. Let's not beat around the bush, so he doesn't get confused. Tu Xianbao nodded. My mother has heart failure. They say she needs heart bypass surgery. Mr. Fuang Gwen, you understand more about medicine than me. Do you have any suggestions? Actually, I recommend conservative treatment. What is the treatment method? Usually eat lightly, limit eating greasy and spicy foods, and combine it with Oriental medicine therapy. I believe she can live a very long life. I'm not sure exactly how long it will take, but living for the rest of your life is no problem. When I said this, Xianbao slowly breathed a sigh of relief. He snapped his fingers at A.B. Bill, behind his back. A.B. Bill nodded, brought a black leather briefcase, placed it on the table, and unlocked it full of money. Reading it, I looked at this money box, to M.O. Asked a question. Brother Fuang Gwen, there is $1 million here, don't refuse. You must accept it. My mother has not been easy on me since childhood. I only have one person. You saved her with me. Xianbao, that is a life-saving grace. After Tu Xianbao finished speaking, A.B. Bill also advised him next to him. Doctor, this is Bao Bon's sincerity. In the future, she will still rely on you for treatment. Sighing, looking at Xianbao helplessly, I said, if you consider me a brother, then bring this money back. Brother Hong Gwen is not hiding anything from you. I was forced to do forced labor before because of a woman. Tu Xianbao was stunned. What is this all about? I narrated the whole incident. Tu Xianbao was extremely angry. Damn, there is such a shameless person. Speaking of this, Tu Xianbao glanced at A.B. Bill. A.B. Bill immediately agreed, resulting in me immediately pulling A.B. Bill back. Brother, you can do this. I thank you, but love cannot be forced. Come here, hold the glass of wine in your hand once. The whole situation is not a bit of sympathy, but rather knowing many people and meeting many gangsters inside. I know many people still wear colored glasses to look at themselves, but this group of people is unbearable. There is something unclear about this group of people. Do you understand what I mean? I vow to make deep friends with you. This is truly a sincere statement. A virtuous person is usually a good person. An ungrateful person is usually an educated person. That's because I have this past. A sentence that truly speaks to Xian Bao's feelings. He also doesn't want to go on this path. At that time, wasn't life forcing you? Step by step until today, once you have entered the world, wanting to retreat is really too difficult. Xian Bao sighed and picked up the bottle of wine. I consider you my brother. I won't say anything more. It's all in this glass of wine.